excavated down to 8 feet, put in a 2-foot thick pad with rebar extending up. They brought in their rebar, 7 truckloads of concrete. It's colored concrete, one steady pour all the way up to the top.
I'll never forget every time I smell you around me. I touch the blade in my pockets. Everyone's watching, everyone's laughing. But now they talk about me, I'm the one they're hunting.
Thanks for joining CBP on what we think is an announcement to be proud of. We have just completed the construction of 8 border wall prototypes. They were completed on time and as set by the schedule we put forward. Border security relies on a combination of border infrastructure, technology, and personnel. We also have to have partnerships with federal, state, and locals. Border walls have proven to be an extremely effective part of our multi-pronged security strategy to prevent the illegal migration of people and drugs over many years. Specifically, walls are part of a border enforcement zone, which includes roads, lights, and surveillance technology. In area where it's needed, a border enforcement zone gives the U.S. Border Patrol agents the best possible conditions to maintain a safe and secure border, not only for the border itself or for the integrity of the border, but for their own personal officer safety. On the 25th of January, the President issued an executive order instructing the Department of Homeland Security to plan, design, and construct a physical wall along the southern border. The order also instructed DHS to use appropriate materials and technology to most effectively achieve operational control of the southern border. We issued 2 requests for proposals, one soliciting concepts for reinforced concrete designs and other for non-concrete alternatives. The construction of these prototypes began here in Otay, Mesa on the 26th of September. We chose this area because San Diego is one of the busiest sectors in the nation. As an example, in 2016, the Border Patrol apprehended 31,000 illegal aliens and seized nearly 9,200 pounds of marijuana and more than 1,300 pounds of cocaine. Over the years, border infrastructure, technology, and other operational initiatives have improved border security in the San Diego sector. However, more work needs to be done. Prototyping is an industry-tested approach to define the best solution when considering new product or methodology. Through the construction of prototypes, CBP is partnering with industry to identify additional means and methods to construct border wall. The prototypes will inform border wall design standards, which will likely continue to evolve to meet the U.S. Border Patrol's requirements. All of the prototypes include features that discourage digging, climbing, and withstanding of breaches, and all are between 18 and 30 feet high. Constructing prototypes here allows U.S. Border Patrol agents to interact with different designs in an active border enforcement zone. This will help CBP compare and contrast the characteristics and durability of these prototypes with those of current wall and supporting infrastructure. Now let's talk about what's next. The prototypes have been built. CBP is using an integrated testing and evaluation approach for assessing the prototypes' unique approaches to impeding and denying illegal entry. We will also be testing and evaluating the prototypes' ability to withstand breaching methods and equipment. Can it be climbed? Can it be dug under? Can it withstand cutting tools? Development and the technical testing, evaluation, planning, and execution will be conducted by our Office of Acquisition, Systems Engineering Division, Systems Analysis and Evaluation Branch, while operation and mission testing will be conducted by the Operations Support Capabilities and Requirements Division, Land Systems Ops Test Authority, and together they will plan and execute testing and evaluation for the vendor-provided mock-up and prototype designs. It usually takes about 30 days for that process to play out. After that, that's how long it will take before these walls are ready to test on and the mock-ups are ready to test on, and then about 30 to 60 days for the test and evaluation after that. But the testing and evaluation will inform future physical wall design, material, and equipment, which will then be detailed for future requests for proposal for future wall construction. I want to summarize that the role the Border Patrol has played in this process. The U.S. Border Patrol is the expert in determining how to best secure the border. All the parts of the border remain vulnerable to illegal crossings. Therefore, the Border Patrol's operational assessment of the border has informed and will continue to inform plans to build infrastructure and deploy additional resources. The Border Patrol relies on 4 interdependent master capabilities to secure the border. Domain awareness. This is achieved through technology that helps detect, identify, and classify threats. Impedance and denial. This is provided through border walls designed to deny and deter illicit activity across the border. Access and mobility. This is accomplished through added infrastructure, which includes accessing patrol roads and enhance our responsibility and capabilities. And then mission readiness, provided by agents through their training and tools that govern the law enforcement response. Border walls are critically important to each and every one of these master capabilities. I'm very proud of what the team has accomplished here. I hope we've clearly outlined the reasons for the approach we've taken. These prototypes are vitally important for the future of border security here in San Diego as well as the southwest border. I want to thank the federal, state, and local partners as well as our international partners, Sector Chief Vitiello, and I'm now happy to take your questions. So there's a minimum requirement in each of the bases below ground that it will help deter and detect tunneling. And then we'll use that situational awareness piece, that domain awareness piece. All new wall that the Border Patrol is asking for will have a buried cable sensor in it, so that it will recognize. The technology will tell agents and the response teams that there's somebody approaching the wall, and then things like digging and tunneling will be detected by that equipment as well. So those are the features, both physical and technological. So what happens, what CBP has taken the responsibility for based on the executive order that the President sent to us, we're going to look at all of these features, look at what works, what doesn't work, and then we're going to test it for digging, we're going to test it for breachability, we're going to test it for climbing, and then we're going to look at all the other things we've asked the vendors to do, things like the aesthetics, things about what's on the top and how it deters climbing or grappling and those kind of things. All of that evaluation will then get put back to the evaluation teams at headquarters, both the engineering piece, the environmental, and then the Border Patrol operational concerns. So we'll put all of that mixed together and we'll determine a new design for specific areas. And so these features and what's reflected here will be a composite request for new wall, both for primary barrier, what we put right on the actual line, and then what we use for the enforcement zone, like you have here at the border infrastructure system, which will be set back from the border in some ways. So there'll be different versions that'll come out of what we've learned from these prototypes. So the request for proposals has specifics for what the bases are constructed of, and typically that goes down, concrete goes up about 6 feet. Some of them are bigger, some of them are set back further. It just depends on what the vendors gave us, and we'll evaluate the variances in each one to see what fits for us. But we know that when we put infrastructure at the immediate border, or even in a secondary barrier, we have to pay attention to tunneling. So it could be one of these, depending on how the evaluation sorts. But it would more likely be a composite of the features that are expressed here, because there are different requirements for different locations. So what you put at the immediate border versus what you put in an enforcement zone have different attributes and have different needs. And so we're going to look at everything that's reflected here and then put a new design standard for immediate border barrier and the secondary barrier. So what's reflected here has already been allocated to CBP and the department through FY17 funding. Everything that we do new from this point forward, there's some authorized projects for 2017. Everything we do in 2018 will require on appropriation. It is expensive. We think this works. We think it's valuable to do. It's important. So we will give ourselves and the rest of the government and our authorizers and appropriators all the information that they need about the estimates that we're going to make. It will be expensive. It takes 30 days for the concrete to set, so we can't manipulate these until then. Same with the mock-ups, the actual breachabilities. And then we'll spend between 30 and 60 days on the evaluations. Then once all that information and all the testing and the science is developed, then we give that and we'll have some engineers look at it, we'll have our operators look at it, and then we'll make a plan for a subsequent request. So 30 days for, at least 30 days for the concrete to cure, about 60 days for the testing and evaluation, and then an additional 30 to 60 days to evaluate all that material and develop a new standard. Going up is a matter of, like you said, of the appropriation. We'll have our work done between 3 and 4 months about what the standard looks like and as it goes out for an additional bid process. We've got some replacement projects that are going to be underway in 17, and then the new wall will all start in 18. We're not on final decision on the planning for the prototypes that are here. There are mock-ups of each of these walls in a separate facility here close by, and that's where the breaching and the tools and the cutting and the actual destruction to see how long it takes to get through, that'll be done outside of here, not these. Here we'll test scalability, climbing, and tunneling. What we want to replace here in San Diego, we have a design standard for that. These have given us information already. that may go into the future procurement requirements for a primary wall. But to the other question, if we already sort of know what we want to do on primary replacements. There are a lot of things that have to happen to make this work. I think the limiting factor is the appropriations for it, all the new wall. We've made decisions for 17 and have been funded for some replacements, but the new requirements are dependent on several things, including an appropriation. We're doing everything we can to meet the mandate for operational control at the border and the President's direction to build wall on the southern border. We intend for that to happen. This is all set up on federal acquisition rules, of which I'm not an expert. He's obviously had input in the sense that he's given us the direction to do this. I'm not in the decision cycle at the White House. What we've done is met the mandate for getting us ready to do this project. We feel like this is a milestone. The prototypes are a milestone to get us down the road. Well, it took us 30 days to get what we see here. So that's, these are ideal conditions, I would say. It just depends on where we go first and what exactly the project is and what materials we're going to end up using. I know from my experience that when these barriers are effectively resourced with the technology and with the agent response, their mission readiness, that it works. And I'm happy to have a discussion about that with anybody. Don't have that in front of me, but I think the President's request for 18 is about 1.6 billion. That's for CBP. A lot of that is wall money. But it's other things as well. And if you don't leave with any other message from us here, recognize that it isn't just concrete and steel, what's reflected here. We need to have the sensors, the cameras, the patrol roads, and obviously the agents that make the difference. That's how you secure the border. You have to have the right mix of those technologies. So CBP has experience in these projects previously, and we learned a lot about our requirements for environmental protection, and we'll be good stewards of the land for these projects and the ones that go forward. 6 companies that are reflected here won this bid for prototypes, so they are winners in the process so far. What we'll do now is learn from what they've given us and the innovations that they've made to develop a new standard, and we'll engineer that, and then we'll put that back out, and then there'll be other vendors that can compete for that process.